keep this brief, but it's pretty important when it comes to identity security and how it currently exists when we think about detection, response, and the trust that we have in an identity after authentication. So we've all heard of zero trust, right? And that essentially, is a principle. We're just saying we're not trusting this identity at all until it provides authentication, until it provides verification that it is who they say they are, and you know has the authorization to access the resources that it is requesting. So zero trust makes a decision point. It's a decision point, at authentication, and that decision either goes to we are not trusting this identity or we are trusting this identity. It's a binary choice. That choice is not revisited after authentication occurs. Once an identity is in the lobby, in the environment of an organization, there's no reevaluation of that trust decision. And that's why I talk about trust so much, because it's not just a conceptual word or, a way to theorize. I'm not just talking about trust because it sounds philosophical and cool or whatever. Like, it's actually technical, and it can be measured through time. So the way that we currently look at security is it's focused on events. It's focused on what happens, right? But it's never focused on when, and it's never focused on when nothing happens, right? Like the actual passage of time. There aren't always things going on. There's silent moments. There's silent seconds. There's moments when an identity isn't moving at all. It's just like inactive, or sitting. The problem is attackers do the same thing, and they are absolutely leveraging persistence, slow moving sessions, long-lived tokens, dormant accounts that an organization has forgotten about. Say you haven't rotated your service account passwords, like that. These are entry points where attackers absolutely can persist in an environment for days, weeks, months. So we have to look at that flow of trust and what's happening around authentication, because identity and IAM has gotten authentication down, and it, as we go into agentic AI, we can't just trust on authentication, right? We have to be paying attention. So I drew up this kind of diagram that goes through the flow currently that we see in identity security. And apologize for my terrible handwriting, but starting with zero trust here, this is the decision point, right? This is before the identity has authenticated. Once it's authenticated, it is in this presents the border to the environment, or the network. Once it's in, it's authenticated. That identity, represented by I here, goes about its session, right? And we have AI detection, we have behavior analytics, we have baselines that we create to watch for deviations from that baseline. But it's all event based. It's all based on what happens. And in essence, it waits. These detection tools wait for something to happen. And that's the kind of the key that I'm getting at here is our tools currently wait. They're not proactive in measuring through time. So say this identity is authenticated, B standing for behavior in this case. It could be positive, like normal expected behavior, or negative, risky events, like red flags, deviations, what's going on here. And that's when our detection fires off, right? And then we have our response mechanisms. The problem with this is it's binary, right? And sometimes there's silent moments, sometimes there's nothing that happens, sometimes there's dormancy, sometimes there's an actual threat in our environment that is just being very, very careful. Our tools are not going to detect caution. They're not going to detect, slow moving, inch by inch, moving in throughout an environment. And so, really, what we need to have here is, say, a continuous. Oh, that's an awful line. Anyway, this marker is dying, but you get what I mean. It's a line. So we need to carry this identity through time, actually, and we need to start seeing the identity session as a timeline, right? It's continuous trust. I know that, like, there's a buzzword out there, a continuous evaluation, as we move towards, dynamic identity security and all that. Continuous evaluation is still event based. It's not using time, it's not counting the silent moments. I'm talking about true continuity of that identity, right? So, say nothing's happened in a few hours, right? That should actually, the trust in that identity should start going downward, right? But if you're just waiting for something to happen, if you're just waiting for an event, something that is in your detection logic, you're not going to catch just the silence. You're not going to catch someone being away from that account or that account being quiet. So we miss all of the sort of gray area moments, right? Because we're focused on being so fast to detect events and so fast to detect what happens instead of just carrying something through time and seeing trust as something that can decay or stabilize. And that's a lot more representative of how trust actually works in the real world of human relationships. And trust is not always a static straight line. Like, it'll go down and it'll go up based on reinforcement or based on silence, based on distance. And so I'm just saying, as technology in this agentic era and our lives becoming more intertwined, as these digital identities essentially more and more represent us, we have to start seeing trust as a measurement, as something that is quantifiable, and is something that is capable of providing insight, capable of providing intelligence for defenders, for security teams. Very important to see that this stuff it's dynamic. It's not black and white. So I'm going to be doing more videos on this. Essentially, the Reservation protocol was developed last year by Glass Vault, my research lab, to focus on identity trust. And really, it counts every moment, from the moment of authentication until that session has expired or terminates. And you're essentially building that timeline by looking at presence signals, right? Something proof that an identity is still there, right? A password reset, a login, an MFA event, and then also silent moments as well. So Reservation takes all of those individual, what would normally be snapshots, but then maps them to a timeline. And that gives you like a trajectory. That gives you a decay curve. It gives you a full story of how that identity is moving in an environment. And that's just going to be key. The more that, agentic is a thing and we have attackers leveraging models, we have to see how identities are moving in our environment before detection logic is required, before something happens. Because oftentimes it's too late by the time something happens. So I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. I'm going to be at RSA conference in San Francisco this year, as well as Identiverse. Just pulling up and talking about identity trust and time-based trust. And trust can't just be a buzzword. We have to start taking it seriously. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.